There's real power in finding yourself again and finding your people, especially after 60, especially after realizing you've become invisible to the world. But as I've shared in our last conversation, this experience of age-related invisibility doesn't have to mean disappearance. It can be a powerful moment of evolution, a shedding of old roles, a rewriting of outdated stories, and a return to something more authentic. And as I've walked this path of becoming visible again in a new and deeper way, I've been reminded of the power of a tribe and why community matters more than ever in this chapter of our lives, especially for us women, as second act sisters, post 50 trailblazers, and kick off your shoes and finally enjoy life souls. In this conversation, I explore what happens after invisibility, when we stop shrinking and start writing our own stories again, and how finding the right community can change everything. I'm the Forest Fairy. Welcome to my corner of the woods, where I'm rebuilding, revamping, redesigning a magical life, and hopefully inspire you to gather your own fairy dust. Hello everyone, I hope you're having a fabulous week. I'm currently in the beautiful Eastern Cape province as I moved my mom to my sister's for a 6-month stint. It's a lot warmer for her here. So our last conversation was about the ache of becoming invisible and the possibility that by reframing this phenomenon, it could actually be a sweet paradox or a portal, as it were, to something different, something authentic. I mused about 2 aging narratives that I followed to a certain extent and how I realized that it's my prerogative and responsibility to create my own narrative, one that's way more inspiring and energizing. Today, I'll share this narrative, and more importantly, I'll share some transformational power of finding our tribe and the need we have to belong. Imagine this woman. She works in corporate, kitten heels, briefcase, electronic diary, and long hours. She lives alone in a neat, albeit colorful home in a small complex in an ordinary suburb in a big city. Her weekends? Shopping, catching up with the kids, and some R&R, and the very occasional social event. For 10 years this was her life, quiet, productive, and just a bit lonely. Fast forward a few years and she's now in a 2-full cottage in a small village. She hardly wears her heels. I think she's keeping them for some special dates. Her diary is a big fat book and she just lives in her jeans. She walks her dogs in the healthy morning light where she waves to at least 4 people. She laughs often and visits with friends. Her new narrative? Redesigning a magical life. Messy, social, authentic, with the occasional rut or two. Far from perfect, but continuously evolving. That woman is, of course, me. It's important to realize that no life is perfect. No matter how interesting, blessed, rich, authentic, or enriching it may be, it can also become boring and a rut. However, I think the secret is to remain aware, to keep things in perspective, and to continually be mindful. So in building your new narrative, ask yourself, what did I love before? What still excites me? What do I want to learn or express in this phase as I transition from invisible? This is the time to become the woman who runs with wolves, or the woman who commits to a passion and becomes an artist, an author, a gardener, or the woman who takes her health seriously and transforms herself, or the woman who becomes a successful entrepreneur, or even the woman who gives a sigh and gently lives her life after a hectic career. So the slow fading and becoming invisible in the eyes of society is actually a blessing. It's the time in our lives when we can truly decide with excitement and probably a lot of trepidation, what next? And more importantly, with whom? It's time to meet your tribe or tribes. More on the plural later. On the way to a local book launch, I was discussing the topic of invisibility with a good friend when she shared a side of being invisible that I had never considered. It seemed in the workspace and the city she wasn't invisible, but an anomaly. She was the older, grey-haired single woman in the workplace who left gatherings to go home to her dogs, and "Ach, shame," said the younger crowd. This, she explained, was one of the reasons she loves living in our small village. There are so many women like her, older, single, white-haired women, and now that she has found her tribe or tribes, she feels accepted and content. The invisibility conversation definitely touched a nerve, as many of you responded to me personally. And one friend in particular lamented on how isolated she had become since moving from a country town to the city to be close to her children. Several years later, she still hasn't found a tribe. And so I believe we underestimate the importance of community and of a shared identity. We underestimate the supportive and healing power of belonging. It doesn't mean you only get lonely in cities or only feel visible when you find a tribe that looks and acts like you, but it does mean that community makes us feel like we belong. And according to Maslow's hierarchy of needs, belonging is the third most important thing after self-actualization and esteem, and ranks above safety and physiological needs. So once you're done figuring out who you are in this phase, what your values, interests, and skills are, you put on your big girl panties and start looking around for the group activities, the classes, the workshops to join. You'll find more on how to do this in the conversation. Find Your Tribe, my newbie's guide to friendship and community. I'll link it somewhere above and in the description below. You probably won't find your soul tribe right away, but try the classes, the quiz evenings, the clubs. Drop in, observe, and stay open until you find what interests you. And then you commit. Commit to building the friendships, commit to building the skills, commit to participation. Because community grows through participation, not perfection. And belonging requires visibility. So find out what's happening in your neck of the woods and show up authentically in both your own story and your new tribes. And here's something important. You don't need to find one perfect group. You get to build a beautiful eclectic mosaic of connections, because contrary to popular belief, I don't think we have just one tribe. We're too multifaceted for one single group, aren't we? Myself, for example, and note I said multifaceted and not multiple personalities. I have a few tribes and I'm working hard on finding more as I discover who I am and how I want my story to unfold. I'm passionate about the beach all year round, collecting shells, watching whales, swimming, snorkeling, and walking the cliffs. But my hiking friends and tea drinking crowd may not be. You may love music in all forms, but your yogi friends may prefer silence. You get the idea. So don't limit yourself. Of course, there'll be some people or tribes that are more important and more prominent in your life. But the perfect recipe for me is one with variety, as that's the spice of life. And so there you have it. My perspective on becoming invisible as we become older and the power of a tribe in this phase of my life. It's not perfect, but it's exciting and keeps me on my toes, out of my head and out into life. So tell me in the comments below, are you in a tribe or still looking? What kind of community would truly light you up in this phase? Please share your perspective. It may just be the spark that someone else needs. If you enjoyed this conversation, you may just like the one on Find Your Tribe, my newbie's guide to friendship and community. Wishing you a week filled with great friends and interesting tribes, and of course, sprinklings of fairy dust. Until next time, goodbye